Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine too, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interview you, John.
Thank you, Nizam. Thank you for inviting me.
So, friends, we have John here. He has 17 years on a family farm located in Wiltshire, UK. Then 6 years in the Air Force. Left after enduring the Turkish invasion of Cyprus through the ranks in corporate manufacturing to head of operations. Feeling unfulfilled, he left corporate and started his new journey in personal development and specializing in firewalking, which is the topic of today's interview, and emotional intelligence. He retrained in psychology and wide range of modalities, and now he does a lot of coaching and self-empowerment seminars. He has had nervous breakthrough, and he lost all his money in 1989. It was the best thing that ever happened, he says. I don't know why. Let us ask him. He hasn't had a job since. His wife too, and he loves what they do and enjoy their life immensely. They have two lovely children. Both are senior professions in the corporate marketing and branding world. They also have a granddaughter, 18 months, and two chocolate Labradors, which they might pop up around.
Yeah, she's sitting there. There she is.
Yes, they can see. And his passions are firewalking, staying fit and well, and playing pop and tradition rock music. So that's John for us. So, John, what makes you say that it was the best thing that happened to lose your money?
Well, basically because at that time I was, very involved in the corporate world. I got caught up into this world where money was everything. Money was the most important thing that you had to chase, and the more money you have, the more happy you will be. And unfortunately, that didn't prove to be the case back then. I have nothing against people having lots of money. That's fantastic, because money gives you choices, and money allows you to help other people. So I don't have a problem with people having money. But I think I had got the wrong end of the stick when it came to what money meant. And when I was sort of forced to leave the corporate world because I didn't fit in it anymore, because my whole mindset had changed because of getting involved in firewalking and the spiritual world, didn't fit with the then corporate world. I think the corporate world is getting more spiritual nowadays, but still got a long way to go. But back then it was certainly not something that you would talk about around the board meeting. Yeah. And so when I left, I set up my own business, and it just happened to be the wrong year to set up a business. 1989, Margaret Thatcher was in power, and she told everybody that, the secret to success was to start your own business. So everybody left their jobs and started up businesses, borrowed loads of money from the bank. And then, of course, she put the interest rates up to 17%, and everybody went bankrupt, and including most of my friends that had started up in business. I was in the thing called Round Table. I don't know if you have that in India, but it's like a business owners club that we all belong to. I think out of about 30 of us that were in that club, about 50% of us went broke that year. Lost all our money. But what it taught me was that if you haven't got your health, and you're not happy, and you're not fulfilled, then it doesn't matter how much money you've got in the bank. So I learned a very hard lesson that the most important thing of all, and we still believe that right to this day. And my wife and I are both in our middle 60s. We both believe that our physical fitness is the most important single thing that we must have. You must have mental and physical well-being. Yes. And abundance. And if you haven't got that, it doesn't matter how much money you've got, because money ain't going to change that. Yeah. You can't buy. You can buy private medical, solutions to health problems, but I would personally rather not have the health problems in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah, so that I don't have to pay for them. And so it taught us some big lessons. It taught us that, you know, the most important things in life are being kind to other people, helping other people to have everything that they need in order for them to be well and healthy. Yeah. And in return for doing that, you get this amazing feeling of abundance and of having given and freely. And, you know, because I, like I said to you earlier, a lot of my business partners have been Indian gentlemen, right? And Indian professionals as well, doctors and people from, you know, the professions. They practice and they preach giving without needing anything in return. You know, it's part of your culture. And it's a lovely part of your culture that I really learned from. And I believe in that. I believe that, you know, the more successful that you can be, and success is different for different people. But for me, success is about waking up every morning feeling that you've actually made a difference the day before, and that you can make a difference today to the world. Yeah. And if you can do that, the money will follow. You know, you can earn plenty of money. We earn enough money to have a good life. We have a lovely house. We have 2 wonderful children. We have the freedom to be able to do what we want to do when we want to do it. When I was in corporate, I could have worked 8 days a week if there was 8 days a week, and they still wouldn't have cared. They'd have let me do it. You know, they'd have let me do it. So we've learned a big lesson, and that's what I meant by it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because it made me wake up, made me realize that I didn't have to go and work. I didn't have to leave home at 6 o'clock in the morning to be at work for 8 o'clock, and then get home at 8 o'clock at night absolutely shattered. I didn't have to do that anymore, you know, and we now teach everybody else that we come across that they don't have to do that either.
Yes.
Now, there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else. Lots of people love doing that. And I have nothing against that, as long as it makes you happy. But if you're doing it and it makes you feel miserable and unhappy, for goodness sake, get out of it and do something else. That's my philosophy. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, John. And how did you get into firewalking?
Well, even when I was at school, actually, I was very much into the esoteric stuff. I was very much into yoga. I had a Chinese English teacher at my school. Right, he was a lovely guy. He was sort of half. I think he had an English mother and a Chinese father, but he loved things like judo, meditation, yoga, and all of the sort of Eastern practices. And so I learned very young, you know, in my teenage years, that all these things existed, even though I was working on a farm in Wiltshire, you know, which is about as far away from the Eastern culture as you could get, you know. So I learned very young that these things existed. And so I sort of learned about meditation. When I joined the Air Force, I was very lucky that when I went out to Cyprus, I went out with an Indian guy. And his name was actually Omar Sharif, but not the Omar Sharif. This is an RAF Omar Sharif. But he taught me to meditate because he was a Buddhist. So he taught me to meditate. So even in my early 20s, I was learning to meditate properly. Okay. And so that's how I got into it. And then fast forward to 2000, I went to a management training weekend. Yeah, and part of that weekend there was a firewalk on the I think it was on the Thursday night. Yeah, and so I experienced my first ever firewalk in the snow. It was snowing in the UK, and then I just loved it. I just loved what I learned. I realized there was a whole new world out there. So I left the corporate world and actually joined the company that put on that firewalk to help them with their business development. And then I myself went out to California and trained with the grandfather of firewalking in the Western world, a guy called Tolly Bacan, who'd learnt it from Eastern practitioners and from Native American Indian practitioners of firewalking. So he learned the original cultural way of doing it. And then, so that's how I trained, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yes, because in India, like whenever there are any festivals, still we get to see these firewalks and as part of some ritual.
Yeah.
When I grew up, I was surprised, like this is used as a personal development and a lot of teaching benefits, all that. So it is fascinating how this firewalk was. Like, what was the concept? How did this firewalk entered into the arena of training and personal development?
Yeah, I mean, firewalking goes back thousands and thousands of years. So, it's documented in all continents, and there's lots of different historical origins of it, and nobody can be absolutely sure of how it started. It's used as a religious ceremony. In some countries, it's used as a rite of passage from a young man to a man in like Native American cultures and South American cultures. Obviously, it's used a lot in shamanic teaching. It's used in Buddhist teaching. You'll find it all over the world, and it's I'm one of the founder members of the Global Firewalking Association, and we have a meeting every year where we have people from all cultures come together. Wonderful. And show us different ways of doing firewalks. And to be honest with you, some of them completely blow my mind the way they do it, because I think, wow, I thought that the way we did it was difficult enough, but the way that you do it is like seriously scary, because they'll do it, with the coal up around their ankles, the hot coals up around their ankles. You're like, my God, and they just walk straight through it with no burns, nothing.
No burns, nothing. Wow.
No. And there's a transformation spiritually in you as a human being when you do a firewalk. And I can't actually put it into words because I don't think there are any words to describe it. But all I know is that there are people that have done firewalks with me and people who I've done firewalks with in other countries whose lives have been completely transformed because they've suddenly learned that they are a spiritual being living in a human body for the first time. And there's no explanation as to why you don't get burnt. There's no physics explanation, no scientific explanation as to why you don't get burnt. There's lots of scientists out there that try and put it into a box and say, this is the reason why you don't get burnt, because because you're walking too slowly, or there's carbon on the coal, so there's no transfer of heat. Well, that's complete cobblers, because we can actually walk into the coals and just stand still and not move and still not get burnt.
Stand still?
Yeah, you can walk. We call it a fire stand. You walk into the middle of the coals and you just stand absolutely still, and you can stand there for up to 2 minutes, and you still don't get burnt. If you were to take a piece of meat and put it on that coal, it would be atomized in 30 seconds. So why is it that a piece of meat gets shriveled and burnt, and yet the human foot doesn't? What's the difference? Well, we have a spiritual being inside us, whereas a piece of meat is just dead flesh. But it is very difficult to explain.
Yeah, such a beautiful experience.
I've got lots of explanations for it, but I'm not going to hit you with any of them because they could all probably be disproven. so I can only go by my own experience. I've seen people do things that you shouldn't be able to do physically. And I'm an engineer by training, and you should not be able to do that.
So
but you can.
It is kind of beyond logic, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and we all know what it's like to be burnt. It hurts.
Yeah. So, John, what kind of transformations did you see in people who before and after this firewalking experience?
Well, I can give you some pretty major extremes. I mean, there was a young girl who was massively traumatized when she found her son dead. She just woke up one morning and found her son had died from a drugs overdose, and it was pretty horrendous and horrific. And he was a very young lad. He's a teenager, obviously she was absolutely mortified by that. But after she'd done our firewalking seminar, she was able to accept it, and she was able to move on with her life. And I still keep in touch with her now, and it can quite literally transcend your belief system and actually just trigger things inside you which were always there. They were, you had those gifts inside you all the time, but they were suppressed because of the way that we've been brought up to believe certain things by our parents and by our teachers and by our professors and anybody that's tried to train us to tell us that, you know, these are the things that are achievable and these are the things that aren't achievable. And, you know, we all get measured, don't we? From the minute we're born, right the way through school, through university, we're all being measured and compared to each other. And the fire doesn't care. The fire doesn't care whether you're a professor or a little kid. It really doesn't care. It heals everybody. Yeah. And, you know, I've had autistic, do you know what I mean by autistic? We've had autistic children who've suddenly been able to cope with life because they've suddenly realized that they've got a spiritual element to themselves, and therefore they are much bigger than they ever thought they were, because they've just been put in a box and been told that there's something wrong with them. They need fixing. Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with them. They don't need fixing. They're just different. They're just unique and different. And suddenly they realize and wake up that they're unique and different, and they accept that, and they just go and do stuff that's unique and different. You know? They no longer go through life with this negative label.
So, first time I came across firewalking done in the Western countries was from Tony Robbins seminars. I just heard that he makes people do, and a lot of shift happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's fascinating. What happens? Exactly how is like? And
well, I've done the Tony Robbins stuff because I worked with Tony for 3 sessions. I went to 3 of his big seminars where there was like 10,000 people in London, and so I've experienced it as a student, and I've also experienced it as a member of his staff. So I know both sides of it. Without any doubt, he's an incredibly talented man, and nobody can take that away from him. He is an incredibly wealthy man. Nobody can take that away from him. And the fact that he can work with, you know, 10,000 people at once is pretty miraculous. And the fact that he's got enough energy to work for 4 days solid without having to have a break is quite amazing. So he is an incredible human being. His firewalks are very American. They're very hypey. So there are 2 ways of doing a firewalk, because the basic concept, Nazim, is that your vibrational energy has to be either the same as or higher than the vibrational energy of the fire in order for you to not burn. So that's the theory. And if you take that as a spiritual theory rather than a technical than a scientific theory, everybody understands that we're all vibrational energy. You know, every human being, everything on the planet is vibrating at a certain frequency, isn't it? We all know this scientifically, but we also know it. We also, I think, understand it from a spiritual point of view as well. And the way that we teach it, as in my team and a lot of people that train me, is that we teach people to do it both the hyped up way with high energy and the loud clapping and the loud music. Yeah. So you can do it that way to get your energy up. But you can also get your energy up by doing the exact opposite, which is to Zen, to meditate and to get completely at peace. Yeah. And to me and to my wife, Sue, behind me, we've both trained as firewalking instructors. We prefer walking in peace and in the Zen-like state.
Zen way.
Because you can't get yourself into a hyped up state in life in order to deal with a problem. You can't suddenly start jumping up and down on the bus, or if you're stressed, or jumping up and down on the tube train, or jumping up and down in the boardroom and going, yes, you know, because they think you're nuts. Yeah. But you can go inside and quieten yourself down by meditation and breathing. Yeah. And then you can generate that very high level frequency that you need to be able to transcend fear. And basically that's all it is. You know, fear is the lower frequency stuff. If you can imagine there's a bar, yeah, fear is all the lower frequency stuff below the bar. Peace and love is all the higher frequency stuff above the bar. And if you can maintain that high frequency for most of your life by being kind, loving, giving, you know, helping other people, whatever, suddenly the world's opportunities open up to you. They just start to come to you. Again, there's no explanation for it other than the fact that it's like the law of attraction. You know, by getting yourself into that very Zen-like state, good things start to happen to you. Whereas if you go through life angry, bad things keep happening to you. It's not actually rocket science if you think about it, is it?
Yes. So I liked your explanation of how one can do the firewalking in the hyper state and also in a Zen kind of state. That's
yeah. And you'll see, you'll see if you go to see, for example, if you saw Buddhist monks doing a firewalk, they do it in complete silence, and there's no external noise at all. There might be a drum, the occasional drum tapping. But that's all. But there's no hyping or shouting. You go to somewhere like Brazil, and they're all hooting and laughing and jumping up and down, and and most of them are high anyway when they're doing it. But
there's different ways, is what you are saying.
Personally, I think that the answer to most of life's problems, including what's going on at the moment around the world, is for everybody to just calm down and learn to actually live in peace and stop fighting. My ultimate dream is that's what will happen. Obviously, having been an ex-military man, I know what it's like to be in a war. Nobody wins in a war. There's no such thing as winning a war. It's a complete and utter fallacy. Yeah, somebody has to pay, so there's no winners in a war. Yeah. But I think that the more that we can pass on this knowledge to more people, younger people, so that they can realize that you don't have to be massively competitive, and somebody doesn't always have to lose in order for you to win. Everybody can win. There's plenty of abundance in the world for everybody, and that's our philosophy. That's why we do what we do. That's why we teach people to realize that they don't have to go through life suffering from what I call the very noisy inner mind. A lot of people suffer from lots of inner voices where they're continuously being told what they can and can't do. So they don't need anybody external to tell them, because they're beating themselves up. And that's what we teach people, is to quieten that noise down, so that then you can make sensible, guided decisions about what to do in your life.
And what is the frequency, like a person has to keep attending these Firewalk seminars or the processes once in a while? That will help, or people have just done once and also experience a major shift?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've done thousands of firewalks, and every time I do a firewalk, I still learn something about myself. And every time I go up to the fire, I think this is the time that I'm going to get burnt. So I treat it with a lot of respect. I never get complacent about the fire. It is a real fire, and it will bite your ass.
Yes,
it will bite your ass if you don't give it some respect. It will bite your bum. And we had a guy who we recently trained as an instructor. He came to my last seminar, which was a couple of weeks ago, and he just assumed that because he'd graduated as a fireworking instructor, he no longer needed to get himself into the right state to walk across the coals. And he walked across the coals, and he got about halfway across, and he went, yeah, leapt off, burnt his feet. I said, you weren't paying attention. The fire will always win. The metaphor is, if you do not pay attention to life, life will come along and it will burn you. It's a simple metaphor, but that's what firewalking is about. It's a metaphor for life. Pay attention, use the tools that you've learned to use, which can get you into that Zen-like state, which is a loving state rather than a fearful state. And anything is possible. It is as simple as that.
Wonderful, John. Thank you very much, because I just wanted to interview someone who has experience, instructs, and could share some experiences about the benefits of firewalking and all that.
Sure.
Finally, it happened. So,
my pleasure. Have you done a firewalk yourself?
No.
Oh, you must do one.
But I haven't done it.
You must do one.
Sure.
You must do one. If you get a chance. I mean, if you let me know whereabouts you are, I can probably introduce you to somebody that's an instructor in your area.
Sure.
So that you can go and do one, because honestly, it will change your life. I can guarantee you that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so, what made you interested in asking about firewalking, just as a matter of interest?
This is what, because I know this is firewalking. We have seen it, grown up seeing it is part of our cultural, like whenever there are festivals and all that.
Yeah.
When I started learning this NLP, hypnosis, and all that, and I heard the stories of firewalk, firewalking, and the shift people have experienced, and Tony Robbins making his students do in the trainings and all that. So I just wanted to know what exactly happens. How do people experience? What is this shift? People say that our life shifted, but what happened exactly? Like how before and after? So that's what.
Sure. Well, it is very individual for for everybody's experience is different, and it very much depends on where you're at when you start the training. If in other words, if you come into the training room and you've got a lot of rubbish going on in your life, then the chances are that you will have to work a little bit harder to get yourself into the right mindset. If you're coming into the firewalking seminar and you're already pretty comfortable with who you are in the world, then you're still going to get something out of it, but you'll probably get it in a different way to the person that's got some stuff going on, and everybody will get a completely different experience from it. So there's no one generic explanation for what happens. It's different for everybody depending on where their starting point is. Yeah. But one thing that's guaranteed is everybody will go up a notch. Everybody will definitely
from where they are.
Yeah. Everybody will gain. Nobody's ever done a firewalk and never gained anything, apart from somebody that maybe has done a firewalk and hasn't paid any attention to what you told them, and then they walk across and burn their feet. But they still learned something.
Yes.
They've learned that maybe it's a good idea to pay attention.
Yes. That is also a learning by itself.
It's still a learning, isn't it? Yes. So everybody learns something. Yeah.
So usually how many days this firewalking seminars run for, and like how much time people spend, whoever comes?
Well, that varies as well. I mean, mine are normally 1 day. But we also do, occasionally we do firewalking retreats, where we incorporate, nutrition, exercise, yoga, meditation, sweat lodge, whole load of different things, where we literally we immerse people in a whole massive range of very spiritual experiences so that they come out a completely different person to the person that went in, and it can be quite mind-blowing, to be perfectly honest with you. You probably need about 2 weeks to get over it before you can go back into the world again. Because so much has changed in you from a sort of DNA point of view. Every cell in your body's been reprogrammed. So you have to allow yourself time for that all to just settle before you go back to the real world again. But it's very, very powerful. Yeah. Amazing. So normally 1 day, but quite often we do 3-4 days.
Okay. That was excellent. Thank you very much once again, John.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, Thank you. It was nice to know about this firewalking, its benefits, and I liked your comparison of high state and Zen state. Loved it.
Yeah. They're a very different way of. It's a little bit like, if you're into music, you can get an incredible experience from listening to heavy rock music. And I love heavy. I know I play. I show you. I am a rock musician. I have lots of guitars. So I'm a rock musician myself, and I try and use as much live music as possible in my seminars. And I can get an amazing buzz out of playing really heavy, really loud rock music, but I can also get an amazing buzz out of listening to really gentle classical music.
Using the same instrument.
Ballads. Using exactly the same instrument. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and both of those experiences are delightful, but they're very different. So it's a similar metaphor to the firewalking.
Yes.
So you listen to the type of music that suits your particular mood at the time. Yeah. Hope that helps.
Yes, John. Thank you once again for your time and talking about firewalking and sharing your experience. It was wonderful having you, John.
My pleasure. And if you could let me have a copy of this would be great.
Definitely.
And also, I'll send you a copy of the drone video that we had made 2 weeks ago.
Sure.
Of our firewalk. It's great because it starts off at 600 feet.
Wow.
And then it pans down to the firewalk. And it's the two separate drones. There's one at 600 feet and there's one at about 200 feet. And it's filming the whole thing as it's going on. And it's all been set to rock music. So
if possible, I will share that as well.
Then you can share that at the bottom of this so people can get an experience of what it was actually like.
Definitely, John. It will be an extra bonus for the viewers to experience from the drone point of view. That is beautiful.
My pleasure. And if anybody wants to connect with me on either Facebook or LinkedIn, just share them the links. That's fine.
Definitely. In the YouTube description, John, I will be making available of your Facebook social media links, basically.
Yeah.
So that if someone is interested to connect with you, they can connect.
Absolutely. And like I said, I can connect you guys with people out where you are. So, because we've got a global organization set up now, we know where all the instructors are all over the world. So we want as many people as possible to be firewalkers. Everybody should be firewalking. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
all
you.
right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.